Hell's Angels, and then really remolded it in his image. But Craig McIlquim was Nurgit's guy, and Nurgit, when he was doing a lot of this politicking, going around the country earlier in his reign, we're talking, let's say, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, you had McIlquim watching his back. So this is no small, drop in the bucket or blip on the radar. This is a major murder investigation that is on, with a full all hands on deck approach by law enforcement, both local Ontario law enforcement and the RCMP. He was very close to Rob Barletta. We're told that he was somebody that was in the good graces of Marty Robert, the visionary Montreal boss, the kind of Nurgit 2.0, a guy that's taken a lot of what Nurgit did and making it transcontinental, transnational, and going around the country and building stronger ties for the Hells Angels, or I should say, going around the nation, going around the globe, and taking what Nurgit did throughout Canada and expanding, innovating, vertically integrating, evolving in all the markets that they have, the 60 countries that they're in, the 600 chapters that they have. Nurgit and Marty are running the show for the Hells Angels right now in the world. And again, this is a guy that was, and Craig McIlquim was very close to the top leadership in the Hells Angels. So this is something that I think is being considered a top priority in terms of getting to the bottom of, both law enforcement wise and on the street. Barletta was part of that Project Hobart bust in 2019 with Truck McIlquim, and they were working with the Figliomeni crew within the Calabrian Mafia in Toronto, and they were also moving a lot of cash to the Caribbean. Part of that investigation showed that, and we're talking about how many major iconic Hells Angels that Truck McIlquim was directly connected to. Part of the 2019 bust, we saw that he was meeting pretty frequently with Sam Cazetta and Sky Langlois, the guys that run the South Mother chapter for the Hells Angels, and that Cazetta was helping Barletta and McIlquim, according to the indictment in 19, move somewhere between $5 and $10 million from a stash house that they had, and how they were going to get that cash over to the bank accounts in the Caribbean. So, you're talking about guys that are making moves at the highest of levels in the Hells Angels and in the biker 1% world throughout the world. So this is again, this is something that everybody is taken very seriously. We know that McIlquim took the Niagara chapter from Barletta. Barletta ends up going to, he had been the boss of Niagara. He was boss of the London chapter. He was called to Montreal by Marty Robert in the last 4 or 5 years. And we also know that the last time a Niagara Hells Angel was killed, it planted the seeds for the war with the Rizzuto mob. And we're talking about Dirty Diaz, who was the Niagara Hells Angel, gunned down in 2019, in the spring of 19, and that really primed the ground for the war that erupted a couple years later. What we're told is that Hells Angels had blamed the Rizzuto mob for not going through the proper channels. They accused Dirty Diaz, who was a guy that was lower level guy, just a collector, just an enforcer, but somebody that was very well liked by the leadership, Rob Barletta, Nergit Stadnik, and those guys, and that the Rizzutos thought that he was skimming from joint rackets that were being run by the Rizzutos and the Hells Angels, and they took it upon themselves to send a crew, a hit crew, that a lot of people tie to the Arab Power mob, Arab Power crew, that do farm out jobs for everybody. They're equal opportunity. They're mercenary types, and they came down in March. A hit team from Montreal came down 2019, killed Dirty Diaz. Most of that hit team was convicted, and just to kind of bring everything around to right now in terms of the drama that's been in the Niagara chapter that started in spring of 19 and is now popped right back up now in the spring of 2025, 6 years later. The alleged getaway driver, Mark Issa El Khoury, who was acquitted of the charges in the Dirty Diaz hit in the spring of 23 and then murdered in December of 23. A lot of people believe as retribution for his participation in the Dirty Diaz hit. The two hitmen in his murder were indicted and arrested in the last couple days, and we'll keep you updated on that. But the Niagara chapter, and we'll get more into this in the history that we're going to release about the Ontario Hells Angels and the history of them in the coming days. The Niagara chapter is a rough and tumble group. This is a group whose roots, go back to Skinny Ward, who was a drug kingpin, basically, not a biker that Nergit grew very fond of and brought into the Hells Angels, and his whole crew became the first Niagara Hells Angels chapter, and they were more gangster than biker. So that's always been the attitude and the reputation of the Niagara crew, that this is a tough bunch, a group of guys that are not to be, don't test these guys, the fuck around and find out type. And it was embodied by guys like Skinny Ward, Rob Barletta, and Truck McIlquim, who really were, they were the best of both worlds in terms of old school and new school biker types. And they were able to deal with guys, or Barletta still is, able to deal with guys from different generations and kind of bridge that gap and take the best of what it means to be a biker in the 2020s and mix it with what it meant to be a biker back in the day. And that's a pretty, lethal combination in that world, and something that makes you a commodity. And that's what Truck McIlquim was. That's what Rob Barletta is. And it is, it's very representative of what the Niagara chapter is. So we'll be keeping an eye on everything that goes on with this investigation. But Truck McIlquim, 55 years old, Niagara Hells Angels boss, gunned down April 29th. Investigation is in full swing, and we are reporting here at Gangster Report that, or I should say at Original Gangsters Podcast and our companion web magazine, the Gangster Report, we're reporting that the Calabrian Mafia, the Ndrangheta, the Sederno group are being looked at as the top suspects in this murder, and that the motive had to do with joint rackets that were being run or are being run between the Sederno group and the Hells Angels, and related to bookmaking and narcotics and allegations of monies that were owed and not paid or came up missing, or people that were being edged out of certain deals. And people, what we're told, the crux of the investigation right now is that Truck McIlquim had developed enemies within this group of the Ndrangheta in Toronto that he was doing business with, and they targeted him and murdered him last month. We shall see. Original Gangsters Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'm Scott Bernstein, OG Pod, Gangster Report, uncovering the underworld, one city, one region, one country at a time. We'll see you next time.